Now, we've been discussing character, but it's important to remember that any character, you and me included, we are inevitably a product of the place that we originated from and the time in which we originated. So let's discuss those in order. Let's first talk about place. Place is incredibly important to a story, to a writer. To me, it has recently become almost the most important thing. An understanding of place will greatly help your story. It will help you to understand where your characters are coming from psychologically, the world in which they spend their lives that has its effects upon them. Place, if you're talking about a real place that you wish to write about, the method for investigating that is perhaps a little bit complex and time-consuming, but it certainly pays off. This would be some variant of the popular term psychogeography. I recall that when I was starting the Swamp Thing series for America, one of the first questions that I asked the comic company, I said, yeah, okay, you want me to write this book, Swamp Thing? So which swamp is he the thing of? And they looked at me blankly because I don't think any of them had actually asked that question before, because they didn't really consider place or location to be a big thing. They told me that, well, it might be the Florida Everglades, might be Louisiana. I thought Louisiana because I liked the music from Louisiana. So I started to research the place, and it doesn't take much. All I needed was a local phrase book, a book of local slang, a map of the state, perhaps with maps of individual towns if necessary. I've got a record of jukebox hits to give me some of the musical culture of Louisiana. I read about its history. I learned about what sort of plants grow there. Spanish moss and water hyacinths, for example. I learned about the birds that they have down there, the blue herons. You don't need very much, and you will already know more about the place than most of the people that are living there. Most people have no awareness at all of the landscapes in which they are living. If they had more of an awareness of place, I suspect that they might find that they enjoy places more. If we walk down a street and all we see is grey terraces that are devoid of any meaning, we might start to think that we're living in a bit of a rat trap. And you do that for long enough and you're going to think, I'm living in a rat trap. I'm probably a rat, aren't I? It's going to soak in, because to some degree we are the places that we live. Whereas if you're walking down a street and you know its history, if you know all of the rich circumstances that have led up to that place, it will be like walking down a street from the Arabian Nights. It will be like walking down a fantastic avenue of glory and mythology, and you will think after a while, hey, I'm living in a mythological landscape. Maybe I'm a mythological being. It works both ways. The places that we live, they can degrade us and they can make us feel like completely empty, useless individuals in an empty and useless landscape. Find out about places and make them burn with meaning and significance again, and you will find that the people living in them will burn with meaning and significance. We have talked about how to represent a real location in your stories, but you will probably, almost certainly, at some point or other, have to create a place that isn't real. To create a world is a bit of a challenge, but it is certainly not beyond your capabilities. Just remember that your world that you're creating should have internal consistency. It doesn't matter whether it is nothing like our world at all. It can have even different physical rules, but those rules should be self-consistent. Whether you're talking about a world like Mervyn Peake's Gormenghast, whether you're talking about a world like Ursula K. Le Guin's Earthsea, or whether you're talking about the fabulous, horrifically overgrown Eden of Brian Catling's extraordinary Vor trilogy, where you've got a forest that has somehow spread through space and time to be in every conceivable country in the world at once, and to also somehow be in different time periods. This is a fantastic piece of imagining, and even with all of that fantastic imagination, you can keep it consistent. One way to create an imaginary world is by considering its texture, because this is one of the first things that the reader will be looking for. They will want this to feel like a real world. And what I mean by texture is all of the trappings that we find around us in society that we barely notice. Advertisements, scraps of news broadcasts, television programs, scraps of songs on the radio. All of these things that make up the texture of our lives. If you want to create an imaginary place, try faking some of that. Of course, while it is immensely important to get the place right that you are writing about, it is possibly even more important to make sure that you're not making any mistakes regarding the period. This will entail a little, in fact quite a lot, of what we were talking about earlier, which is research. You can, to a certain degree, if you can remember a period, yes, you can use that to greatly enhance your depiction of it. I can remember the 1970s, I can remember the 1960s, I can remember a bit of the 1950s. So I would probably use that to colour any impressions, but I don't really know much about those areas, so I would have to research them, even eras that I lived through, because the eras that we live through, we actually miss quite a lot of what's going on. We don't necessarily understand the times that we're living in. So, in fact, it can be a lot more revealing to look back with hindsight from a later date when we've got all of the information in. If there's any way that you can find out detail, do it, so that you know exactly what streets your characters would have to walk down to get from this place to that place. It gives incredible confidence to your writing, incredible authenticity, and that will convey itself to the reader. The reader will think, this person sounds like she knows what she's talking about. They will trust you because there is something about the authentic detail that really can't be imitated. You know it when you hear it. When I was doing the Halo Jones comic strip, where I wanted to immerse the readers in the reality of this 50th century world that I was imagining, and what I did was to dump the readers what is called in media res. It's where you dump them right in the middle of everything without explaining it. So they arrive in the story halfway through a news broadcast that is talking about unfathomable things, using unfathomable slang, is talking about celebrities like algae baron Lux Rothschild, who you have never heard of. But this will give you the sense of being dumped in a real place and having to figure it all out, which is actually quite a satisfying experience for the reader. It's not necessarily alienating, because if they've got a chance of figuring things out, they will delight in doing that. It's what human beings do. We like to figure things out.